FLANKNARA? Is that a thing? It should be. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Raynday Gaming. My name is Raynday, and today we're going to be talking about Inara. The flank gameplay you see on the background isn't exactly how I always play her, but it is actually a very fun thing to do, and if you trap enemies into these small corridors, you can be very successful. Inara, straight out of the designer's mouth, is meant to control space, and I want to talk to you all about my thoughts regarding this frontline champion and her woes, her successes, where she suffers, where she has her strengths, and maybe what we as a community or as a team need to do to bring her into relevance, if anything. In fact, I think a good game, a good meta isn't about doing something actively to bring a champion into relevance. I think it's addressing issues, maybe things that don't align, things that could be improved or that other characters have that this character is lacking, to just give her an even playing field. You don't want a character to feel like they have a disadvantage inherently against the entire game, not just a specific meta, and I think Inara is somewhere in between. So I want to hear your thoughts, but again, I'm going to talk a little bit about where I think Inara is and kind of lay the table for those who aren't really aware or haven't been catching up with Inara. When Inara was released, she was a very interesting champion release. The design, the animation, everybody loved the appeal that Inara brought from a visual standpoint, and some of the, again, the animations as well were awesome and probably some of the best in the game. When you just talk about her ultimate, that windup is just beautiful. But where a lot of people were already questioning Inara at even her release announcement before she was in live was the damage, the ability to impact a game. Her ultimate, it felt a little bit weak in their eyes, whether it needed more seconds of a stun, more damage to it at base. All of these things were kind of the top of mind discussions for most people when they initially saw Inara. So with Inara being in the last couple of patches, we've had time to test her, and unfortunately she hasn't been picked up by the pros. Now, the pro scene doesn't necessarily mean that she's not a good champion. It could just mean that she's out of the meta, but we also saw that maybe some of the reasoning behind the buff in her last patch was to improve her performance. So maybe there's a correlation here between, you know, how Inara is performing casually and how the pros are perceiving her. And I think it was a valid claim that most people had on launch. Inara, you know, she could probably use a little bit more damage. That got buffed. She added 300 damage to her ultimate from 200 to 500 when it stuns. She also got a reduced cooldown onto her right click, which is her most important, I think, crucial ability. That gives her survivability. That goes hand in hand with Mother's Grace, the legendary that I'm using. That means you have now 50% damage reduction, and it's incredibly strong in terms of being able to survive for that burst moment when champions and teams are really trying to go after you. But is this where the problem lies? That's the big question going into talking about Inara and where to turn the dial. I mean, with a champion who has damage reduction, a frontline champion who can mitigate 50% of the damage happening at her on an 8-second cooldown, that's pretty strong, especially if you start adding Chronos into the mix. So where do you turn the dial so that she gets to become viable from a pro side? Casual players have a lot of fun and do well with her, yet you then don't have her becoming this unstoppable force that I'm sure we've all had and seen champions go through those phases in the game. I mean, with legendaries, it was bound to happen, right? When they first got introduced, Lifelike Ying was incredibly strong. I mean, she was out healing everyone by a ridiculous amount, and that had to be tuned down, and now we're seeing back to normal numbers. But you just notice how that one simple change, illusions can now heal 2 people instead of 1, shifted everything out of meta. The Ying became first pick. I mean, it was like almost a guaranteed win if you got her, and that can be very frustrating to play against. And so avoiding that is almost a better case for an overall game than trying to make somebody who maybe isn't viable now, maybe doesn't fit the current meta, viable by adding all these extraneous and maybe overkill buffs. But again, does she need something? I play this champion and I feel like there are moments where I am so successful, but I also feel like there are moments where I just don't have enough in my toolkit, whether it's my cooldowns, whether it's the wall not being placed correctly or me maybe flubbing that up, or maybe the wall needing a little bit of height or width, whatever it is. I feel like there are moments when I play Inara where I'm absolutely steamrolling, and then moments where I just feel helpless, more so than almost any other champion. And that, I think, is an interesting part, because, you know, when she's meant to control space in a close area, how do you have her control space in a wide area when she has no movement skill and all of her abilities pretty much work close range? Do you just accept that she's going to be bad at that range? Do you increase the range on her abilities? Does the F, the Warders Field, become a deployable that you could deploy in front of you and a little bit farther away from you, not just on top of you? Does the wall get increased length, excuse me, that you can, or range is what I'm really speaking about, that you can deploy a lot farther away from you to maybe shut off a corridor and not have to be so close and maybe still be on the point? How does it change? And how do you do it in a way that really makes the game still feel fun, where you're playing against Inara, still feel like you can counter her, and not that she's just a dominating, unkillable beast from all ranges in all areas? And the other question is, does Inara even need a buff? Like, that's the big thing too. That's what I don't understand. It's that maybe Inara actually doesn't need anything at all, and the meta and the maps are just not suited for a champion of this style. Maybe we get a certain map that becomes the Serpent Beach, the Jaguar Falls, the standard pro map in a few patches that's very close-knit, and Inara is the bomb on it. She shuts off one main corridor where all these flankers can flank, and it's like instant kills if she gets a good wall there, and she just becomes super OP because Maldamba can see her from like 800 yards away and Mending Spirits her, and like, I don't know what it is. You can't shoot the Warders Field obelisk, and you know, she's body block. I don't know. But honestly, what if that happens and we just don't know it yet because we haven't been there, we haven't seen the moment shine where Inara is really at her best? I feel like that could be some of it, but even though I'm playing devil's advocate with myself here, I still feel like there's something that could be done to maybe not necessarily make Inara stronger inherently, but maybe to give her more variety. Some people I've talked to, including myself, I think this is a decent idea to talk about maybe adjusting some of her cards. Maybe you look at a legendary and see if we could bring that into a little bit more viability. Right now, I feel like Mother's Grace is probably the strongest legendary that she has. Although I have a lot of fun with the cripple one, I just find that it's so unreliable to use, and that I have to put myself in so much danger and use it offensively, when really with the cards that she has, it's intended to be used defensively. Maybe there's something that could increase the slow on that, that can maybe say, okay, I'm going for like an aggro Inara, but really all of the cards are about healing within the Warders Field. They're all about, you know, taking less damage while you're in Warders Field, which really means like you want to use it defensively, but then if your legendary has it being used for a cripple, the only way you're going to really apply that cripple is to a bad player who walks into it, that's a bad player. But to a good player, you're gonna have to go up to them. But when you go up to them, you're in an offensive zone, right? You're not necessarily being, you know, a defensive monster sitting on the point, where front lines often are, or kind of holding down a space. You're in the back line, you're in the middle of the fight, and that doesn't have as much synergy as I would love it to. So maybe there's a way to look at cards, maybe there's a way to look at the legendaries. I want to know your thoughts. Really, this is not about, you know, judging anything or making anything look bad or good. It's just raising questions. It's a thought experiment. What would you touch with Inara? Where would you, oh, not like that. Okay, come on guys. I know she's looking good, okay? She's tall, she's model height, but you ain't got to start thinking all like that, all right? I mean, I know she has rock hard abs. She is looking good in a bathing suit, so I don't fault you, but come on, let's keep it clean on the video. But for real, guys, let me know your thoughts about Inara. What would you like to see, you know, kind of tweaked, if anything? Do you think she's fine and the meta needs to wait for her, just like Ruckus, and he'll suddenly become top pick in a different map, a different selection of champions who are kind of prioritized? Or does he need some tweaking? Does she need some tweaking to some cards, some legendaries, her base skills? Does she need an increased area of Warders Field? Does it need to be deployed away from her? Does the wall need to change or reduce the cooldown on that? Let me know in the comment section below. I want to hear your thoughts, Paladins fam. And again, guys, remember, Friday I'll be doing a celebration of 31 and 31 stream with my girlfriend here on the YouTube channel, so make sure to tune in for that. As always, my friends, remember to never give up, never stop gaming. Like, share, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all next time.